Hi, my name is Chase here, and let me ask you something. Do you suffer from chronic night terrors? Is your fibromyalgia acting up? Does this hierarchical regime depress you to no end? Me neither, but here's something I can help you with. Hi, my name is ChacePlayz, and I'm prescribing you with a JRPG. Japanese role-playing games have been found by our top scientists to be relaxing, therapeutic, and most importantly, fun. Suck it up. So don't wait, pick up the phone and call 877-564-SUPLEX that train now. I actually have to talk about the game now, don't I? Ah, shit. One of the things we love to feel in video games is to feel strong, to feel powerful, because God forbid you're gonna do that in real life. I'm so alone. We love the feeling of getting lost in an expansive world filled with deep and layered characters while you and your ragtag group of outcasts fight God with the power of friendship to save the world, and nowhere is that more featured than in JRPGs. Growing up, I mostly stuck to platformers and the occasional shooter, but in the last couple of years I've been discovering I have quite the love for the genre. It might just be a game of watching numbers go up and down, but goddamn if they aren't some sexy numbers. Now I know how mathematicians feel. My favorite experiences with role-playing games have been with the Paper Mario series, Persona 5, and of course, Final Fantasy. Now, I will admit, I'm not as big of a fan of this series as other people, as I've only actually beaten 2 of them, but the 2 that I have finished are 2 of my favorite games of all time. I'll definitely get more into it when I give them their own videos, but Final Fantasy 6 and 7 are video games that I cannot get enough of. Whether it's their expansive worlds, their unforgettable characters, or their battle systems, I love everything about them. I've given the rest of the series plenty of shots, but I've never actually finished any of them. Pretty much what always happens is I get like 10 to 15 hours in and get caught up in other things. Like, I'd love to keep playing Final Fantasy X, but it's been like 2 months and I have no fucking idea what's going on in this story anymore. It wasn't even my fault with 9, my disc stopped working, and by the time I got a replacement copy, I've forgotten everything that had happened, so I have to restart if I want to keep playing. Which sucks, because I was really enjoying it, and I will eventually go back and finish it once and for all. But that's not what we're doing today. No, today I want to venture into some uncharted waters for once, and hey, I've never beaten the first Final Fantasy. Hell, I've never even touched it. I've always heard weird things about these first couple of games, but why is that? These are the ones that started it all. The ones that gave us the series to begin with. There's gotta be something noteworthy to talk about, so fuck it, this is what I'm spending the next 2 weeks of my life on this planet doing. I mean, what else am I gonna do? Take more baths with all of my clothes on?
I mean, I could do both.
Alright, before we jump into this, let's add a little context. You see, Square in the late 80s was not doing very well. They had a decent number of games released, but none of them sold well enough to keep the company afloat, especially considering that barely any of them were released outside of Japan. And it's because of this that the company was dangerously close to going out of business, and everybody had a feeling that their days were numbered. So inspired by the newly released Dragon Quest and clearly Dungeons & Dragons, Square's president and director Hironobu Sakaguchi decided to use this opportunity to create a fantasy RPG which would be the company's swan song before going under, and called it Final Fantasy. Not because it was the final game for Square, but because the name Fighting Fantasy was taken. And so Final Fantasy was born and was a massive hit, saving Square from the brink of death while making them a household name at the same time. Now this game has been re-released more times than you can fucking blink. It got remade for the Wonder Swan Color, but if I'm being honest, I didn't even know what a Wonder Swan was before I looked it up. That version would get ported to the PlayStation 1 with better graphics and sound under Final Fantasy Origins. Then there was the Game Boy Advance version called Dawn of Souls that was pretty much just the PlayStation version on the Game Boy, and then that version got remade again for the PlayStation Portable with even better graphics and sound and added bonus dungeons and super bosses. There's the Pixel Remaster that got released a few months ago, which is pretty much just a slightly worse PSP version that went back on a few changes. And then there's also Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which seems to be a retelling of Final Fantasy 1 for new consoles. Jesus Christ, I thought Doom got remade a lot. For this video, I'm sticking to the NES version for the authenticity and comedic effect, of course. But I will say, if you're actually interested in playing this for yourself, then literally any other version is probably a better choice than this one because of the simple fact that half the game doesn't work. And I don't mean it doesn't work as intended, I really mean it doesn't work, period. For instance, the stats Luck and Intelligence are bugged and don't scale as you level up, meaning that your magic spells never do more than base damage. And the Thief is a worthless class considering that he's supposed to help you escape from battles easier, but because the luck stat doesn't work, that ability does nothing, making him just a weaker version of the fighter. There's There's these special weapons that you get as treasures that are meant to do more damage against certain types of enemies, but they don't work and are just regular swords. Certain statuses do nothing like Dark, most of the spells do nothing like Temper, Saber, or Lock, except Lock 2, which in the funniest example is supposed to decrease an enemy's evasion to make them easier to hit. Instead, it does the opposite and increases an enemy's evasion, which is hilarious. So yeah, this version is rather broken. The remakes would fix all these bugs, making everything work as intended, but I should mention that these bugs don't really make the game unplayable, and I have a funny feeling that these aren't the only issues, so let's jump right in. But first I must summarize the plot, but don't worry, it's really not that complicated. So in this world, there exist 4 crystals, each with their own respective element: earth, wind, fire, and water. These crystals are for controlling the elements of the world and are tied to the earth. But one day, these creatures called the 4 elemental fiends appeared seemingly out of nowhere, causing the crystals to darken, throwing the earth out of balance. And it's because of these events that the 4 warriors of light appear to defeat the fiends and restore the crystals to put things right again. And that's pretty much it. Being an NES game, the story is really nothing to write home about. None of our main characters have any personality or speak to each other. They don't even have their own names. There is some world building from talking to townspeople who are thankfully easy to understand. You would think being an early NES RPG would mean that the translation would be Simon's Quest levels of bad, but it really isn't. Everything is more than readable, and they do a pretty good job of giving you hints and telling you where to go. They're very direct. They don't dance around what you need to do, and I like that. There was rarely a time I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, and it was just up to me to figure out how to get there, which was never really that complicated. Now, to figure that out, I did use a guide, but that's because I'm a fucking idiot, and that's not the game's fault. The only time the translation suffers is everything that's not dialogue, like every spell needing to be 4 letters long, which is fine in most of the times for spells like fire, cure, ice, or harm. But it did take me a little longer than I would like to admit that lit is short for lightning. I don't get that. Why not just make it bolt? This is where we choose our party setup with what classes you want them to be, and you can name them whatever you want. Well, at least if it fits in the 4 character limit, so I went with Barf, Lice, Tits. Well, I did this one before I realized you could use lowercase letters, so it's more accurately TITS! And Teal. For my party formation, I went with what other people suggested, and if you want to do the same thing, then pick the fighter, because they are easily the best class in the game. They can't cast magic, but they hit hard, have great defense, and can equip almost every piece of equipment in the game. You would be surprised how many times TITS was the only man standing in one of the more fierce encounters and somehow managed to win the battle. It's crazy. I also went with a black belt for my team. It did take me a bit to realize that they actually get better with the less equipment you put on them, which in the end ended up saving me a shit ton of money as I didn't need to buy equipment for them. And by the end of the game, they outclassed the fighters' physical damage with their bare fucking hands. And of course I have Teal and Lice, who are my black and white mages. You might be able to down them by looking at them funny, but Teal was great for exploiting enemy weaknesses and clearing low-level encounters when I just wanted to get a move on, and the support skills that the white mage can obtain makes them essential for completing the late-game dungeons. So with my dream team put together and talking to the king about saving his daughter or something, bro, who cares? I decided to explore my surroundings and get accustomed to the battle system, you know, maybe fight a group of imps here and there, and boom, I came across my first boss. And I got my ass handed to me because I did 1 damage per hit. This is gonna be a long playthrough. I guess I should explain what exactly is going on here. For the people who've never played a turn-based RPG, I'll explain how it works. As you roam around the overworld looking for dungeons and towns, you will randomly take into a battle screen where all the attacks are turn-based. Each turn, you choose what you want each of your characters to do one after the other, whether it's attacking, casting a magic spell, or buffing and healing your party. And after you're done, you can sit back and watch your party members carry out these actions and watch the enemies carry out theirs. This combat is something you either love or you fucking despise, but I love it. And I will say, for being the first Final Fantasy, I think this battle system holds up well. I wouldn't really call it amazing, as it's definitely a lot more bare bones compared to the later games, but it's still easy to understand, and there's a decent amount of strategy that comes from figuring out an enemy's weaknesses that makes battles engaging. Now I say that, but there are a few less than favorable quirks here. The biggest one being that if 2 characters target the same enemy and one kills it, the other won't target the next enemy that's alive like in the other games. Instead, they will attack nothing and it will be considered ineffective. And congratulations, you just wasted a turn. Now I've heard plenty of arguments defending this, that it forces you to pay more attention and plan out your attacks more carefully, and I do agree with that to a degree. I will admit that planning out all your attacks and watching every party member carry it out flawlessly to murder everything on screen is very satisfying. But when I want to just get back to the town to rest and go to the shop, this is just a roadblock. And it's the fact that very early on your accuracy is laughable. It feels like every other attack misses your target, and that paired with ineffective attacks, and while you have 9 enemies on screen, this shit will take forever. Thank God for fast forwarding, I have no shame. There's also the fact that dying fucking sucks. When one of your characters goes down in battle, that's it. They're dead. There's no way to get them back in battle since there are no Phoenix Downs anywhere in the game. The only way to revive your characters is go to a clinic in town and pay money to get them back. But when you're deep inside a dungeon and one monster decides he's had enough of your shit, like these really annoying sorcerers in the ice cave that can insta-kill you, you can either backtrack out of the dungeon to get back to a town, or you can do what I do and just reset the game and try again. Dying is such a pace breaker. You do get a life spell later in the game that lets you revive fallen party members to 1 HP, but you can only use it outside of battle, and you only have so many spell charges to spare. Oh yeah, spell charges, that's something unique to this game. Instead of the traditional mana system where each spell costs MP, this game has something called spell charges, which limits how many times you can use the spells in a specific tier before you have to refill them in an inn or a house. Yes, we carry houses with us. These pop figure looking motherfuckers can carry on multiple houses with them. Now, I don't think the system is horrible, but it's definitely not preferable. Having each tier share the same charges means that you're always fucking yourself over by using magic. Hope you didn't use that cure spell too many times, because if you did, you can forget about using that life spell to resurrect your fallen party members because they share the same charges. I thought it always would have made a lot more sense to give each spell their own charges instead of each tier. This system just seems to make things a lot more restrictive than they need to be. But even after all that, I still feel like this battle system works pretty well. Graphically, it has a lot of charm. Of course, being an early NES game, it's pretty simple, but that's what I like about it. The way the characters move forward to attack, the little puff of smoke to each enemy showing you attacking it, and the messages at the bottom that tell you how much damage you did, which goes by incredibly slow if you didn't turn up the response rate. It's very fun and charming, and is the main reason I still found myself enjoying the battle system. Also, this is a little off topic, but I always enjoyed the way the fighter looks when he's walking towards the screen. It's like a cute little waddle, even if it looks weird in real life. Alright, so back to my journey. I decided to reformat my team and actually equip my gear this time. That part was especially helpful. And I challenged the boss once more and finally come out victorious. I then saved the king's daughter and he rewards me by having the bridge fixed so I can continue west to the map, which also results in a very iconic moment. I find another town where I get into a scuffle with a band of pirates that, despite clearly outnumbering me, go down with practically no sweat, and after I beat them I get the pirate ship, opening up the map considerably. This is such a cool moment and is very early in the game too. I can now go almost anywhere if there's a proper dock to disembark. The only thing that kinda sucks is that you still have to fight random encounters while sailing, which can be a pace breaker. At least when they don't fucking murder you, and they will, because when you have this many enemies on the screen, you better hope they don't gang up on one character, because if they do, you might as well start preparing their eulogy. Okay, so I make it across the ocean to the next town where I'm instructed to retrieve the king's crown that was stolen from him, which leads me to my first real dungeon, the Marsh Cave, and seriously, fuck this place. It's long, it's winding, and pretty much every enemy poisons you. Hope you brought a shit ton of peers to counteract that, because I sure didn't. God, being paralyzed fucking sucks. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to wait for it to wear off, but they can just hit you again while you're already stunned, which extends the time that you're stunned. Look at this, I can't even move. I might as well just sit back and wait to be murdered. And when they wipe your entire party, you're starting the whole dungeon again because these places don't have save points. You can't even refill your spell charges because there's no ethers in this game. It's such a pain in the ass. And can I just say that this just accentuates how much this UI fucking sucks? You can't buy items in bulk, you can only buy them one at a time. And even with the fast forward and turbo buttons, simply buying items is such a mind-numbing process, and I shiver at the thought of doing this on regular hardware. And trust me, you need these heal potions. Going into a new dungeon without having 99 heal potions is a death wish because of how dangerous random encounters can be and the spell charge system not allowing many options for healing mid-dungeon crawl. And even when you do have enough potions, using them is incredibly annoying because every single time you want to use one, you have to select the potion on the item screen and then move the cursor over to who you want to give it to, which closes out the menu, meaning you have to redo it again, which is so dumb. I know this is an NES RPG, but being spoiled by other games who do this way better is something I can't help. And I really think that this could have been made a lot simpler for the sake of convenience. You know, the more I think about it, compared to the regular enemies, the actual bosses are piss easy. Sure, they hit hard, but by casting fast on your physical fighters, which doubles their physical damage, they go down without any issue at all. The first fiend didn't even get a chance to do anything before he died in a single turn. It's crazy. I think the reason why is because a lot of the challenge of regular encounters comes from enemies ganging up on you and scoring like 6 hits in a row. But when you only have one target, they can't really do that much damage at a time. It isn't until much later in the game that bosses start rocking multi-target attacks, and by then, so do the regular enemies, so them being harder than the actual bosses never actually changes. Where was I? Oh yeah, the March Cave. So I got the crown after fighting some wizards and returned it to the king, only to find out the king is a monster, and I fight him and win in a couple turns, because of course I did. He gives me the crystal eye, which I take to Matsuya, who gives me the key, which I bring to the sleeping king, who gives me the key, which I use to get TNT, which I use to blow a hole in the mountain, which opens up the map. From here, I make some pretty steady progression, entering the Earth Cave and defeating the first fiend with pretty relative ease. I talked to this guy who very confidently told me that he is in fact a farmer. I got the canoe, which allowed me to make my way to the next town and to the next dungeon. Yeah, if you can't tell by now, most of this game is just constant fetch quests. Talk to this guy, give him these things, go here, use the thing he gave you to go here. This is pretty much the entire game. But all of that results in me entering the volcano, and oh god, this is easily the worst dungeon in the game. So imagine all the issues I mentioned with the Marsh Cave, but while you do that, you are forced to walk through molten lava and have your entire party take constant damage, paired with enemies that have very deadly multi-target attacks that will wipe your entire party with relative ease. It doesn't help that walking through the lava is gonna give me a fucking seizure. Who thought this was a good idea? I just want to talk. The best course of action is actually to stay in the lava, as you can't run into random encounters while taking damage, and I use this to just book it to the boss at the end. Fuck the treasure, their stats probably don't work anyway. Once again, the fiend at the end really isn't too hard and I take them down. I take my canoe to the ice cave, which despite what I've heard really isn't that bad because it's really not that long. The only annoying part is the sorcerers, but hey, at least I don't have to walk through lava. Oh god damn it. Well, I think the biggest reason I'm not too sour about this place is because at the end, instead of a boss, you get the item called the floater, which after dropping it in the middle of the desert, you get an airship. Well, obviously. No, but the airship is fucking awesome. You can go anywhere on the map with very good speed, and on top of that, there's no random encounters while you use it until you get out and walk on the ground. The airship is a goddamn lifesaver. This was the point where things were really starting to look up, especially after talking to this dragon named Bahamut, who asks to bring him a sign of your courage, which happens to be in the Tower of Ordeals, which despite the not subtle name, really was nothing too challenging, and at the end I got the tail? For some reason, this tail is a sign of courage he was asking for, and after giving it to him, he upgrades your entire party from pop figure vinyl to these muscular beefcakes with thick as fuck eyebrows. It also gives the fighter the broadest shoulders I've ever seen. It turns that cute little waddle into a look that says, I just shit myself. But this is such a cool moment. It really shows how far these characters have come since the beginning of the game and really sells your growth. It's more than just numbers going up, it's a visual result of you getting stronger, and it's not cosmetic either. You really are much stronger. Tits! Becomes a knight, allowing him to use low-level white magic. Lice and Teal become wizards, which allows them to equip the best magic in the game, including the exit spell, which allows you to immediately exit any dungeon, which is a godsend. And finally, Barf becomes a master, which actually doesn't do jack shit. Well, fuck. Whatever, this is still cool, and with this newfound power, I'd march right into the next area that's inhabited by these topless mermaids, who tell me that the third fiend is waiting for me at the bottom floor, and holy fuck, I might have spoke a little too soon about these bosses being easy, because this guy nearly had me on the floor with his one-hit kill attacks. I honestly have no idea how I managed to win this fight, it's just dumb luck at this point. But I will take that dumb luck as I only have one crystal refill and one fiend to take down, and he resides at the top of the Mirage Tower, which is in the middle of the desert, and this place is pretty rough. I don't think it's as rough as the Volcano, but it's pretty damn close. It's basically 2 dungeons rolled into one with how long it is, with the second half bringing us into the floating city with some of the best equipment in the game, like the black and white shirt, which I pretty much used for the rest of the game. Okay, this is the last stretch. This hallway leads to the last fiend, which will let me refill the last crystal to save the— hey, what's that? It's kind of cute. Oh god! This right here is the War Mech, the most powerful enemy in the game, yes, even tougher than all the bosses. And that's mostly due to its insanely high physical attacks that can one-shot you, and an attack called Nuclear, which is a multi-target attack that does way too much damage. It's actually a low chance encounter, so you probably won't even see this guy at all, but you know my luck. It sucks. Please don't ask me how I won this fight. I genuinely have no idea. It didn't matter anyway, because I had to reset to get my party members back. The final fiend, Tiamat, was really nothing compared to the War Mech, and with the last crystal refilled, it's time for the end of the game. Okay, so I guess I should get back to the story a bit. It seems that the four forces of the elements are converging their energy on one location. That location being the Temple of Fiends, where we fought this guy at the beginning of the game. This man was named Garland, who was once a soldier of Cornelius' army, but something happened and he ended up kidnapping the princess. I don't know, I guess he got bored. After going there ourselves, our party gets sent back 2,000 years into the past, where we have a rematch against the four elemental fiends before confronting the source of the evil that's been plaguing the land, who ends up being Garland himself, who was sent back in time by the elemental fiends after our first fight. He then sent the fiends into the future, causing a time loop where he and the fiends will become immortal. I like how he even knows how not important he was when we talk to him. Remember me? Garland? Nobody? But since we're here, he transforms into his ultimate form, Chaos, which, despite looking really cool, really isn't that ultimate if I'm being honest, because this final boss might as well be another enemy formation. With a good old 1-2 fast punch, Chaos goes down without any issue, and I really do mean without any issue. We finally break the time loop, saving the planet and having our Warriors of Light go down in history as mighty heroes and become legends with a very convoluted The End screen to commemorate our adventure. So that was the first Final Fantasy. I think I enjoyed it? Final Fantasy 1 definitely feels like the first Final Fantasy. As I said, it is an early NES RPG, so being clunky and having archaic design choices are kind of a given in this scenario, but they are very apparent. Half of the mechanics don't work, there's severe balancing issues making some areas harder than they need to be while making supposedly threatening encounters a joke, and overall probably didn't age that well. But if I'm being honest, I didn't have as hard as a time as I thought I would. Before I began my recording sessions, I was dreading this playthrough, thinking I would want to stop playing after the first couple of hours. But while there were definitely plenty of frustrating moments that I mentioned where I wanted to ram my head into the wall until I saw red, it never reached a point where I wanted to put the game down and never pick it back up. For all that it does wrong, I've played much worse games, let alone worse RPGs, to say that this game is bad, and it really isn't. Sure, half of it doesn't work, but it kept me engaged from beginning to end, which is more enjoyment than I thought I was going to get out of it, and I really did come out of it having enjoyed myself. I can see why this game captured the hearts of many gamers in the 80s and why it was such a big hit for its time. It was ambitious and really took RPGs to the next level, giving the genre more room to grow. So yes, I think Final Fantasy 1 is a good game, but to be more specific, I think that the PSP remake is a good game. This is an incredible remake that fixes almost every problem I had with the NES version. For one, spell charges are no more. Instead, they added the traditional mana system, allowing more freedom for using magic, and this does kind of break the game, but I don't give a fuck. I can actually make it through the volcano without wanting to scream into my pillow, so this changes it in A-OK for me. Along with all that, all the stats, spells, and weapons that were bugged out and didn't work in the original now work as intended. They added Phoenix Downs, so death isn't such a pain in the ass, along with ethers to refill magic points in the middle of dungeons. And I don't think you're ready for this one. You can buy things in bulk! Thank God! You can even save your game in the middle of dungeons without needing to use a tent. Why do I even own this? I'll be honest, I was only planning to record the first hour or so of the PSP version for this video, but I ended up actually playing through the entire game. One, because it's really short, being only like 10 hours long, and also because it's really fun. Now that everything works as intended, I got to try out the thief, who I named Booger. He can't steal anything, but the added help from running away really saved my ass once or twice. And while I was at it, I tried out the red mage, who I named Troy, because in my opinion, he looks like a Troy. He's the jack of all trades that can cast both black and white magic. It just kinda sucks he's not really that good at either of them. Don't get me wrong, he looks awesome, but he can't use high-level spells and can only heal one character at a time, making me wish I just chose the white mage instead. And you know what? If all that isn't enough to sell you on this version, then look at it. It's fucking gorgeous. And the remix soundtrack is amazing. Something that's going to be a trend as I talk about these games is Nobuo Uematsu, who composed all the music for the series up until Final Fantasy X. I will admit, I'm not a music guy, so I don't really know what makes his music good, but goddamn if it isn't really fucking good. And while Final Fantasy 1 is far from his best work, it's still really memorable and probably my favorite aspect of the game. My favorite tracks are the battle theme, overworld, shot music, and the iconic opening prelude.
And with sword in hand, ChacePlayz finally settles his first foray into the Final Fantasy franchise, and with stunning determination marches into another perilous journey with its less than stellar sequel.
I'll see you next year with Final Fantasy II.
It was 1974. The Cold War was just heating up.